In this video, I will talk about the history of one of the most powerful people to emerge in America, the Aztecs. The origins of the Aztecs can be traced back to the Nahua people of the Nahuatl language, who were semi-nomadic people from the north of present-day Mexico who migrated south towards the Valley of Mexico. According to the pictographic drawings of these people in which the Aztecs recorded their history, they originated in a place they called Aztlan, which to this day is not known exactly where it is. The first group of Nahuas to separate from the main northern group became known as the Poctecas. These people settled in the coastal regions of Mexico in Oaxaca, possibly in the year 400 AD. Already around the 600 AS, the Nahua people quickly dominated the center of present-day Mexico, and then expanded into areas previously occupied by Totonaca people, who were the descendants of the ancient Mayans. This was only possible because the Totonac people were weakened due to the numerous disputes they had with another people called Toltecs. The first Nahua who settled in the Valley of Mexico assimilated these people who already inhabited the region and ended up forming several independent city-states known as Altepetl. These independent city-states were governed by leaders called Tlatoani, a title that means something like one who speaks. The people known as Mexicas, one of the many peoples originating from the Nahua, who are better known as Aztecs, arrived in the Valley of Mexico around 1250 after Christ, a time when most of the agricultural land was already taken over by groups belonging to the Acolhuas people. The Mexicas, in this case Aztecs, convinced the ruler of the Acolhuas to grant them a piece of land known as Chapultepec, a strategic and sacred hill for them where they settled. The Mexicas were called by their neighbors Chichimecas, a pejorative term that has the same meaning as barbarians or savages. According to accounts recorded in the Mexicayotl Chronicle, the Mexica people were attacked by King Coxcoxtli of Culhuacan, an independent city-state founded by the Toltec people. The result of this attack was the expulsion of the Mexicas from their lands, who, in order to survive, fled to an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco, where they founded a new city called Tenochtitlan. In the Nahuatl language, the word Aztec means people of Aztlan, which is considered a mythical place where these people and several other Mesoamerican peoples originated. Currently, the term used as Aztec refers only to the Mexica people who founded and prospered the city of Tenochtitlan, where Mexico City, the country's capital, is located today. Domingo Chimalpahin, a 16th century Nahua chronicler, narrates in his record called Relations that during the mythical journey from Aztlan, the main god of the Mexica pantheon called Huitzilopochtli determines to them that now their name would no longer be Aztec, but Mexicas. This makes it clear that they identified themselves as Mexicas, the same name that gave rise to the name of the country of Mexico. We can say that the great cultural and political importance that these people had in the country is remarkable. Around the 11th century, several independent city-states began to war against each other for local resources and regional dominance. The Mexica people of Tenochtitlan allied themselves with a city-state called Azcapotzalco, of the people known as the Tepanecas. Tezozomoc, one of the most powerful chiefs of that city, managed to expand the influence of the Tepanecas throughout the region with the help of the Mexicas. Up to this point, Mexica rulers were not recognized with the titles of kings like other rulers of other independent city-states. But this changed in the year 1372 after a marriage agreement between Acamapixtli, ruler of the Mexicas, and Acolmistli, king of Culhuacan, made Acamapixtli the first king of the Mexicas. On that occasion, Acamapixtli married the daughter of Acolmistli, Princess Ilanquayitl. The Mexicas continued to help the Tepanecas expand their power and influence throughout the region. Eventually, the Tepanecas went to war with the people of the city-state of Texcoco. The Tepanecas won, and the Mexicas were instrumental in that victory. The Mexicas were very well rewarded receiving Texcoco as a kind of tributary province. In 1426, at the height of the Tepaneca kingdom, their king Tezozomoc died. As a result, Tezozomoc's sons, Tayao and Maxtla, fought a battle for the throne, which ended up weakening the kingdom internally. This battle for the throne was not even supposed to happen, as Tezozomoc had chosen Tayao as his successor. In the midst of this dispute, Maxtla poisons Tayao, usurps the throne, and starts persecuting everyone who opposed him. Maxtla's government was marked by oppression, not only against his own people, but also against the cities of other peoples that he had control. This generated enormous dissatisfaction among all those who were under Maxtla's rule. In 1427, a coalition between the city-states that were under Maxtla's rule was formed to remove him from power. Within this coalition, the cities that stood out the most were Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlacopan, which advanced to Azcapotzalco, the city-state commanded by Maxtla. The battles between the coalition and the kingdom commanded by Maxtla lasted almost a year, until Maxtla was defeated and then sacrificed in tribute to the Aztec gods. After the end of that war, the victors formed the Triple Alliance, a treaty in which the three main cities of the coalition shared and would equally administer the spoils of war. Furthermore, all kings of the Triple Alliance would receive the title Huey Tlatoani, which means Great Orator, often translated as Emperor, a title that placed them above the rulers of the other city-states. The Triple Alliance was the basis for the emergence of the Aztec Empire. In the following years, the Triple Alliance began an expansion campaign and dominated several other city-states. Tenochtitlan of the Mexica people was the city that stood out most in the Triple Alliance, and as a result, its ruler became increasingly powerful and influential, and later, the city became the capital of the Aztec Empire. By 1430, the Aztec Empire had dominated much of present-day Mexico. One of the factors that boosted its rise was its militarism, in which all adult men were recruited into the army without exception, regardless of whether they came from noble families or not. A hallmark of the Aztec army, their famous elite warriors dressed as eagles and jaguars terrorized their enemies on the battlefields. A common Aztec warrior wore padded cotton armor and carried a wooden or reed shield covered in leather. Aztec warriors did not have swords. They generally used a flat wooden club from which several obsidian blades protruded. This weapon is called macuahuitl, and in addition to it, Aztec warriors also used wooden spears, bow and arrow, and a dart launcher known as atlatl. Battles took place in or around major cities, and when these cities were defeated, they were subjugated by the victors. After that, the defeated cities had to periodically send tributes and people who would be sacrificed by the victors in rituals to the gods. The empire remained united through the appointment of people from other city-states to important positions, in addition to marriage agreements, invitations to important meetings and events, constructions of great importance that spread Aztec culture, and most importantly, the clear message that if anyone rebelled against the empire, there would be military intervention. The Aztec Empire had a habit of integrating and imposing its culture on the conquered, when the conquered were not completely exterminated. The Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan was formed on an island on the western shore of Lake Texcoco. It grew to the point where it was home to more than 200,000 inhabitants in the early 16th century, becoming the largest city in the Americas at the time. Aztec society, like all others, also had its hierarchical and social pyramid. At the top was the emperor, then came the regional rulers, the nobility elites, the commoners, the servants, and finally, at the base of the pyramid, were the slaves. This social pyramid was practically fixed throughout the period of the Aztec Empire. There were few changes to it over the years, but some evidence suggests that some people managed to climb the social pyramid, and these people would be from the lower classes. Tenochtitlan was not only the political and religious capital, It was also a huge cultural and commercial center. The famous temple mayor called Hueteocalli by the Aztecs was a temple dedicated to two deities, the war god Tezcatlipoca and the rain god Tlaloc. The steps of this temple were the scene of numerous important events for the Aztecs, such as coronations, weddings, and human sacrifices, which were made to appease the two gods to which the temple was dedicated. This temple was the central point of the Aztec religion. Control of water in Tenochtitlan was very important to the Aztecs. There were large canals that crossed the entire city that were surrounded by large rectangular structures called chinampas, which were made in the shallowest places of the lake. The Aztecs marked the site of future chinampas with reed stakes, then filled them with silt extracted from the bottom of the lake and mixed it with a type of aquatic vegetation that floated in the lake. This vegetation formed a thick mass through which one could walk and plant crops. These technologies were essential to the founding and survival of Tenochtitlan. There were also anti-flood dikes, artificial freshwater reservoirs, and beautiful flower gardens that were spread throughout the city. Diego Duran, a Spanish friar and 16th century chronicler, wrote the following about the Aztecs. They believed that they were the lords of the world. Their empire was so powerful that it had conquered all nations, and everyone was their vassal. When the guests saw such wealth and opulence and such authority and power, they were filled with terror. Aztec mythology and religion are linked to the way these people saw themselves and the world around them. The very foundation of Tenochtitlan was based on the belief that the people who came from the mythical land of Aztlan were guided by their war and sun god Huitzilopochtli, who had sent an eagle sitting on a cactus with a serpent in its beak to indicate the exact location where these people should build their place. The Aztec pantheon includes a mixture of older Mesoamerican gods and specifically Mexica gods. Another important god for the Aztecs was Quetzalcoatl, a feathered serpent very common in Mesoamerican cultures. The time for ceremony and honoring of these deities was dictated by a variety of calendars. There was the Aztec calendar of 260 days, which was divided into 20 weeks, each of 13 days that had names such as crocodile and wind. There was also a solar calendar consisting of 18 months, each one of 20 days. The movement of planets and stars was carefully observed by the Aztecs and provided the timing for many religious rituals and agricultural practices. The vast Aztec Empire, which at its peak controlled around 11 million people, always had to deal with small rebellions, but these were always crushed quickly. However, things began to change when the Aztecs lost a battle against the Purépechas after trying to invade their territory in 1515. With the arrival of the Spanish, some vassal cities of the Aztecs took the opportunity to rebel and gain their independence. Hernán Cortés, commander of the Spanish, initially had a friendly relationship with Montezuma II, who was the Aztec emperor at the time. Things started to go wrong when a group of Spaniards were killed in Tenochtitlan, while Cortés was in Veracruz. With that, Cortés ordered Montezuma to execute the Aztecs who took the lives of his men. Montezuma complied with this order, which displeased the Aztec elite and warriors, creating great animosity between the people of Tenochtitlan and the Spanish. In June 1520, the situation worsened, and the people of Tenochtitlan rebelled against the Spanish, who were practically dictating the rules to the Aztec emperor. This culminated in the Battle of the Great Temple, where the Aztecs and Spanish faced each other in a bloody battle. Due to being at a disadvantage, the surviving Spanish had to retreat and flee the city. The Aztec emperor Montezuma II had been killed in the Battle of the Great Temple, and to this day, there is speculation whether it was the Spanish or the Aztecs themselves who saw him as a traitor. In his place, his younger brother Cuitlahuac was placed on the throne, who took over as the new emperor of the Aztecs. Cuitlahuac fortified Tenochtitlan's defenses in case the Spanish returned. However, 80 days later, Cuitlahuac passed away. Some sources claim that he may have been a victim of smallpox that the Spanish brought from the Old World, although some historians disagree. In place of Cuitlahuac, Cuauhtemoc was placed, nephew of Montezuma II and last Aztec emperor before the Spanish conquest. When they were expelled from the city Tenochtitlan by the Aztecs after the Battle of the Great Temple, the Spanish realized that they could not defeat the Aztec alone. With that, Cortés went to the people of the cities who had rebelled against the Aztec Empire and negotiated an alliance. About 10 months later, Cortés returned with Spanish soldiers and native allies, who together besieged the city of Tenochtitlan. The siege lasted 7 months, and small battles took place, until hunger and disease brought by the Spanish made the Aztecs, who no longer had the strength to fight, surrender. With the surrender of the Aztecs, the great and imposing Tenochtitlan, which had been the capital of one of the largest empires in the Americas, was sacked and almost completely destroyed. In its place, the capital of the new colony of Spain arose in what is now Mexico City, the capital of Mexico. This was the beginning of the end of the Aztec Empire, a civilization that conquered a large territory, becoming one of the largest empires in the Americas. But despite this outcome, the Aztec Empire left a great legacy for Mexico, the heir state of that empire. Even with Spanish colonization, Mexicans maintained much of their native culture. Several of the original Aztec beliefs mixed with European beliefs, and this syncretism is very clear today. The Nahuatl language is still widely used by a large part of the Mexican population, and several Aztec city names still retain their original name. So what did you think of the history of the Aztecs? If you have any suggestions for a topic for me to cover here, just leave it in the comments. Thank you very much for watching me until the end. I'll stay here and see you next time.